Ladies and gentlemen, the second part of our morning will continue with the topic resilience and religion as a source of resilience in Ukraine. And it's my great pleasure to welcome here Dr. Natallia Vasilevich, who is theologian from Belarus, right now living in Germany. Dr. Natallia Vasilevich, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues and friends, thank you for the honor to speak today. My name is Natallia Vasilevich. I am theologian and I represent here ecumenical movement, Christians Against War, and the project Pathways to Peace of the Conference of European Churches. In my presentation, I would like to reflect on the role of religion in sustaining resilience in Ukraine during the ongoing war. Religion in this context is not only a source of strength, it is both part of the problem and part of the solution. At once vulnerable and powerful, wounding and healing, and across all of these dimensions, the freedom of religion or belief plays an essential role. First, I will speak about religion as a target of war, how religious communities have been directly affected. Second, I will address religion as a part of the problem, how religious narratives and institutions have been implicated in polarization and identity conflict. Third, I will turn to religion as a part of the solution, highlighting how faith communities provide humanitarian support, accompany trauma, and help shape meaning, hope, and dignity. And fourth, I will offer examples of Ukrainian peace-building initiatives that work across religious communities to strengthen dialogue, reduce antagonism, and build the foundation for social cohesion. My aim is to clarify where the fractures lie, where healing is already emerging, and what support is needed to ensure that resilience becomes not only survival, but also restoration and renewal. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, religious life in Ukraine has suffered greatly. Sacred sites have been damaged by shelling and occupation, and many clergy and believers have lost their lives. According to Religion on Fire project, since February 2022, at least 667 religious sites have been damaged or destroyed. And according to Christians Against War, since the start of hybrid war in 2014, at least 79 priests and ministers of the Ukrainian Christian communities lost their lives. The situation is especially severe in territories currently occupied by the Russian Federation, where religious life is tightly controlled, freedom of religion or belief is gravely violated, and dissent is treated as a security threat. Clergy and believers in occupied territories have faced interrogations, forced disappearances, and pressure to cooperate. Independent religious organizations have been banned or replaced by structures more loyal to the occupation authorities. Churches and religious communities that are perceived as not loyal are subject to harassment, surveillance, exclusion, and forced registration under Russian legislation. In many cases, people are so intimidated that they are afraid to report incidents of persecution, even after they leave the occupied territories. This creates a climate of silence rooted in fear and makes documentation extremely difficult. Religion is targeted not incidentally, but because it carries memory, identity, and moral community, the very foundation of social cohesion. Destroying this fabric weakens society's capacity not only to resist aggression, but to remain itself. Because of this, the documentation of violations against religious communities in occupied territories is an urgent and essential task. The international community should exert consistent pressure on the Russian Federation to ensure that violations are investigated, rights are restored, and the freedom of religion or belief is guaranteed in accordance with international human rights norms. In Russia itself, there are still persecutions against religious anti-war dissidents, and they must stop. And the pressure on Russian Federation also should be made, and that people and religious leaders who are dissidents, they can come back to Russia. Religion is a part of the problem. We must speak plainly. The leadership of the Russian Orthodox Church has provided ideological legitimation for the aggression, framing the war as a spiritually justified and even holy. This has caused deep damage to public trust in religious institutions. According to monitoring conducted by Christians Against War, at least 240 clerics of the Russian Orthodox Church have been identified as participating in combat operations, providing logistical and moral support to the Russian military, or actively engaging in wartime propaganda. Within the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, there have also been individual cases of clergy accused in supporting the invasion, with more than 200 criminal proceedings initiated to date. This situation has significant consequences inside Ukraine. Although the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, formerly under the Moscow Patriarchate, remains the largest religious community in the country by number of parishes, it now faces distrust, public pressure, and restrictive regulatory measures. In May 2022, its leadership declared administrative separation from the Moscow Patriarchate, but the state authorities and large part of society do not perceive this as sufficient to guarantee real independence. Ukrainian society is now navigating a difficult tension between freedom of religion or belief and national security concerns, as if these principles were in conflict rather than mutually reinforcing foundations of a democratic society. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church is widely viewed through the security lens, and the idea of banning the church is popular among many citizens. Transitions of parishes to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine in many cases happen in conflictual, even violent manner, and the intra-Orthodox conflict becomes national dividing line, deepening local wounds, leading to polarization and weakening social cohesion at a time when internal unity is essential for collective resilience in the face of war. The freedom of religion is not an added value or privilege. It is precondition of resilience. Religion is a part of solution. Despite these challenges, religious communities have become essential actors of resilience. Churches organize humanitarian aid, evacuation, shelters, and support for displaced people. Chaplains and clergy accompany grief and trauma, offer psychological and moral support. Interfaith cooperation has strengthened, particularly through the All Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations. Faith-based organizations engage in international cooperation, advocacy, and religious diplomacy. The religion can help reframe trauma. It is also a learning process. Religious communities are discovering how to heal wounds rather than deepen them, and how to respond to pain without producing hatred and exclusion. Instead of interpreting suffering as a punishment from God, many understand it as an unjust harm, which calls for solidarity, compassion, and shared responsibility. Religion strengthens resilience through meaning-making by reframing hardship in dignified, non-punitive terms, through collective action and volunteering, shifting from the position of the victim to that of the agent who helps others. Support from the clergy and community by remaining emotionally connected, sharing grief rather than carrying it alone. This is resilience, not just endurance, but a sustained humanity. Healthy relationships and cooperation among religious actors are essential for this work. And it is only when freedom of religion is guaranteed to all without discrimination, they can strengthen their potential and contribute to resilience. Let me highlight 2 examples of organizations working in this direction in Ukraine. The first one is Dialogue in Action. It works to build a culture of dialogue under wartime pressures. They work with trauma-sensitive facilitation, youth engagement, and capacity building within religious organizations. Their core insight is, if we lose dialogue, we may win the war, but lose a healthy society. The vision of this organization is shared by the ecumenical movement, especially by the Conference of European Churches in the framework of its project Pathways to Peace. The second one, the Sophia Brotherhood, which creates encounters between believers of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and Orthodox Church of Ukraine. It counters hate speech and violence, builds trust and cultivates new leaders who speak with responsibility rather than hostility. Both organizations stress the necessity of fostering freedom of religion or belief as a framework of dialogue. Conclusion. Religion in Ukraine today is a place of wounds and place of strength, where pain and healing live side by side. It is where identity is attacked, where tensions still run deep, and yet where people continue to find meaning, care, and each other. Resilience is not only survival, it is the dignity of how we continue to live, care, and remain human in the face of what seeks to destroy us. If Ukraine is to win the war without losing the peace, it must protect freedom of religion or belief, reduce polarization, strengthen trauma-informed pastoral care, and support Ukrainian-led dialogue that holds communities together. For this, international community have a vital role, not to direct or pressure, but to accompany, to listen, and to ensure that reconstruction efforts are conflict-sensitive and peace-positive. Thank you very much.